Dentistry, I knew nothing about dentistry. Didn't take life as a student very seriously. I think my parents still to this day think I didn't ever study for anything. I wasn't one of those people that said from the age of 3, I wanted to become a dentist. It might seem funny, but I don't think I chose dentistry. And I looked around and I saw this very pretty girl. Found out she's a dental student. She was like a brilliant student and she upped my game a little bit. And since then I had a lot of fun. I did my postgrad diploma in endodontics. I did a master's in endodontics and then recently finished off my PhD. But the ups of private practice, I think it's extremely exciting to be a dentist, a young dentist in the year 2023. Probably the best and the most exciting time of your life. But
all right, welcome back to Cusp of Coffee and the ups and downs of dentistry. However, this week we will be changing things up a bit as we have reached episode 10 of the podcast. And so in light of that, we will be introducing a new tradition on the podcast, which is that every 10 episodes, we will be featuring a guest. And this week, we are joined by one of my favorite dentists at our university. So without further ado, let's get into the episode. I'm Johan Klerk, a final year dental student.
I'm Uwais Adam, a third year dental student.
Martin Vorster, I'm an adjunct professor and lecturer at the University of Pretoria, and I'm in charge of endodontics.
Prof, I'm really glad you could find the time. Like I told you the other day, I feel like you're always just kind of jetting around, busy with some kind of project or giving some kind of talk. But before we really get into any of that, I was hoping you could give us a little bit of a background as to your dentistry journey, kind of how you even decided on dentistry, how life was like as a student back in the day, and kind of a bit of a roadmap as to what happened after that to essentially bring you back to university and where you are today as the head of endo at the University of Pretoria.
Thank you so much, Johan, and thank you for you and Uwais. It's really a privilege to spend this morning with you. I really feel honored, and thank you for that kind introduction. So yes, my journey as a dental student and how did I choose dentistry as a profession? It might seem funny, but I don't think I chose dentistry. When I started applying for different positions and thinking of what to study, I applied actually for medicine, but was unsuccessful. So I thought, okay, let's do BSc biological science and see if we can swap over to dentistry or medicine or whatever the case may be. And I started with that journey. So my first 6 months on main campus was a bit tough because all the other students taking a break and taking it easy and just easing into student life. And I knew I had to perform well to get into either medicine or dentistry or one of the health sciences. And I think there was thousands of hopeful students that tried to do it that way and get into medicine. And then the great news came that they only selecting 20 students for medicine. So myself and a good friend still up to today, we were number 21 and 22. So there were 2 spots in dentistry. And we said, yes, let's give it a go. It looked like it was something that we could pursue. And so I think actually dentistry chose me in a way. And if I think back, I would have wanted to become even a high school teacher. I wanted to go into teaching. My parents were not that keen on me becoming a teacher. But today, here I am, 20 years fast forward, and I am actually a teacher. And I really enjoy it. I mean, I've been at UP now for 9 years. And really, it's been the best 9 years of my career, I think. I love every moment spending with students, dental students. But backtracking again to my life as a student. So now I got into dentistry. I knew nothing about dentistry. And to be honest, if I had to shadow a dentist that time or back in the day doing amalgams and extractions and just basic dentistry, I would have perhaps not chosen dentistry. So it's a good thing that I didn't know too much. And then, I thought still I would pursue the first few years of dentistry and then I would switch over to medicine because the first 3 years at that time was exactly the same. So at any time you could, if you did well enough, you could swap over. And then some of my friends in second year, they were already into the medicine program. They like pissed me off. Can I say that, Johan? Okay. Anyway, let's say we were not in the best space. And I looked around and I saw this very pretty girl, and I said, she is going to be my next best friend. And I moved around in the class and I sat next to her and found out she's a dental student. We became best friends and inseparable as students. And yeah, I enjoyed the journey with her, and she was like a brilliant student, and she upped my game a little bit. And I didn't take life as a student very seriously. I think my parents still to this day think I didn't ever study for anything undergrad. And yet I seem to got out on the other side. And going into the dentistry journey and seeing how passionate she was and just experiencing dentistry, it made me change my mind. And I decided, no, this is a shorter course. It seems like fun. And yeah, so my journey really started off with all the wrong reasons, or for all the wrong reasons. I wasn't one of those people that said from the age of 3, I wanted to become a dentist. But yeah, the journey unfolded like that, and I really enjoyed it. And yeah, after graduation, I went on doing ComServe in Paris in the Free State. That was interesting. We were supposed to be 3 dentists in that clinic, and it ended up only being me. So on day 1, arriving there, I think there was like 58 patients waiting for me. I thought, this is impossible. I don't think I'll get through this 58. And then, surprise, surprise, 58 was only for the morning session. Yeah, so it was quite intense, but I learned extraction skills of note. After that year, I said, if I don't have to do another extraction in my lifetime, I would prefer not to, because I think I did millions. But yeah, it taught me skills and confidence and so on. So for that, I'm grateful. And then I started in a practice in Silver Lakes, which is interesting because many years after that, 20 years after that, I heard that one of the third-year dental students at UP, she actually bought that practice that I started. And we actually started that practice. So, yeah, built it up for a year, helped the doctor there that was the owner of the practice to get it up and running. And from there, I resigned to go to a bigger practice, to join a group, Intercare group at Glenfair. I was there for 2 years, and then I bought my own practice, which was good. That was in Groenkloof in Pretoria, and I spent a lot of hours there, and it was a little bit of an isolated thing for me. I wanted something more. It's a little bit lonely being in practice, being a single dentist in the practice. It was a small practice without scope of like really enlarging the scope of the practice, building on more surgery. So it was only me. And after a few years, I said, no, I want to collaborate with someone in association. So I just moved my practice down the road with Dr. Rojas, and then we started a partnership, which was probably, in terms of my clinical years as a dentist or my private practice years as a dentist, the most fun I had and the best area that I worked in. I really enjoyed that. But I did some sessions at UP. I was a part-time lecturer in basic restorative dentistry. And I always said that if I can afford to give up practice financially and come back to UP, I would, because I could see that this was my passion, enjoying working with students and alike. And yeah, a few years later, the position opened up in endodontics, and I applied, and I was successful. And the rest is history. So that was 9 years ago, and since then I had a lot of fun. I did my postgrad diploma in endodontics, I did a master's in endodontics, and then recently finished off my PhD.
And then how would you kind of compare the years as a private dentist versus the years as an academic dentist? What are some of the biggest differences? Because I know like a few of my classmates, a lot of them just want to leave and they never want to come back. but there's also a subset of them that are thinking like, maybe they do want to come back after a few years. So in your experience, since you've done a bit of both, what would you say are some of the big differences for you? And what's fun as a private dentist versus what's fun as an academic dentist?
Yeah, thank you, An. When I left, I also said this place will never see me again. So for those students thinking alike, I don't blame you. But it does change with maturity and with time. But I do think that it really depends on the person. You cannot say the same person will enjoy both equally. I mean, it's really very much based on your specific personality. I enjoyed private practice, but interestingly enough, the difference I make in a student's life is for me much more rewarding and fulfilling than the difference I made in a patient's life. And you get two types of people that like that clinical interaction. I mean, to be honest, if a patient came back and wrote letters and brought me cake and whatever, saying thank you, it was always, I really appreciate it, of course. I'm not taking away from that. But that compared to doing something in a student's life, and even if that student just says a quick thank you after 5 years, that actually meant more for me personally than anything else. So I think that is really like, it depends on your personality. Both have a lot of ups and downs, to be honest. I think the biggest difference between the two is academics have a lot of components. So if you like diversity in that sense, it's good because you've got a big teaching and training component. As students, I also thought that lectures are just there in the ward, perhaps standing around and helping out now and then, and that's their work. I mean, it seems like it's a very low stress, easygoing type of occupation. But in actual fact, that's the smallest component of your work. You, especially in 2023 and onwards, you expected to publish and do research and to study further yourself, and lots of admin responsibilities and setting up curriculums and study guides and tests and all the admin component, but then also lots of logistics in terms of management of a hospital and all the related issues. So I enjoy that because I like diversity in doing multiple of things. It's for me slightly frustrating to only focus on one thing, and that's also, it's just my personality. But the ups of private practice, I think it's extremely exciting to be a dentist, a young dentist in the year 2023. Dentistry has changed a lot. I mean, most things are much, much easier and more predictable and much more rewarding than it perhaps was 5 or 10 years ago. If you just look at digital dentistry, smile design, CAD/CAM, I mean, the list is endless. It makes private practice extremely exciting and rewarding. The nice thing, the ups of private practice, most of the times you're your own boss. I mean, if you want to change the face of your practice and make it fun and have a kids-only practice, for instance. I follow a few people on Instagram that has brilliant kids-only practices with basketball rooms and playrooms. And I mean, there's so much you can do in your own private practice. You're the boss of your future in that sense. And if you want to make a change, you make the change. You don't have to ask anybody's permission. You just do what you want. And the freedom that goes with that is really nice. And there's always a responsibility going with that. Obviously, if you're your own boss, you have to work hard and make it all happen. You can't just rely on a salary at the end of the month. So, it depends also on your type of practice. I think there's something for everybody. You can either be that person that works and sees 20 patients a day and just do basic work, and that's good. I mean, people need that as well. Or you can set your mind on seeing 3 patients a day and delivering high quality work and getting your practice up to a standard that's internationally on the level of some dentists that's really I won't say famous because I don't think famous is the right word, but doing proper work that people respect and appreciate. Yeah, I think that's perhaps the biggest differences for me. Yeah, I enjoy both. I really do enjoy both. I think the ideal is to be able to do both private practice and some academic.
And like sort of stress wise, how would you say, like, if you compare to maybe if you're only in private practice or maybe if you only in academics, which one would you say is kind of like the one that stresses you out more or that causes you more like your brain to be working overtime after you leave the office? Is it the private or is it the academics?
Yes, that's actually a very interesting conversation. I'm glad you brought it up because I actually forgot to mention this. But if you really want to excel, you work all the time. There's no such thing as walking away from your practice, closing the door, and the day's work is done. So I think the intensity of private practice is perhaps more. The stress and the intensity of private practice is more, but it's limited to your difficult procedures. I mean, not all procedures, like we know, are difficult. You can have a stressful 2 hours and it's short period, but it's very high intensity. While in academics, it's perhaps lower stress level, but it's always continuing. It's like a continuation of stress. It sort of never shuts down, but I think lower in intensity.
Oh, okay. I see what you're saying. That makes sense. Yeah. It's like in private practice, it's kind of like for a shorter period of time, you sort of like on the ball. Whereas with the academics, it's like a slow burn. It's just constantly, you know. And I think that goes back to like personality, like you said, like it depends what you're interested in or what you are comfortable doing every day.
Yeah, exactly. Yeah, you summarized that well.
And then in terms of endo, you obviously spent a lot of time looking into teeth and writing papers about it, giving talks about it. So how did you kind of decide on endo? Was it something that you were interested in from early on, or is it something that over time, as you got better at it, you became more interested in it? How did that route develop?
Yeah, thank you, Johan. When the position at UP opened up, I knew I wanted to work with students. Endo, I wouldn't say was my forte. To be honest, I think in the first 7 years of private practice, I referred all my endos. I actually hated it. It was really the procedure that I disliked the most. And I think peds and crown and bridge work was actually my forte up to almost leaving private practice. And I knew I had to focus on this now in order to further my career in academics. So I started gaining an interest in endo. I think why I perhaps disliked it was the fact that I knew I couldn't do it properly. I think the training wasn't perhaps at that stage where it should have been. And yeah, I think the basic things in dentistry can become monotonous after a while. So I like the new challenge, and with getting better at it, it becomes more enjoyable. So much so that I think I would be fine with only doing endodontics going forward. It's really one of those things, it's very rewarding. It can be frustrating, but once you have the skills, and it takes time, it's not something that someone can teach you in a day or two. And I very often tell dental students, you mustn't feel bad if you feel that endodontics is not your best subject as an undergrad student, because it really only comes with time. You have to practice and practice and practice before you really get it. And one must just keep on going with it. It will really improve. And once you start doing it well, it really becomes enjoyable. One must always remember that endodontics is actually a specialty field in the rest of the world. So undergrads get taught very little of endodontics in the rest of the world. They, in some countries, only allowed to do anteriors and so on. So you have to be a specialist before you can go out and do proper molar endodontics. So to think that in 1 year of undergrad training, you will start being comfortable and be able to do every case that comes your way is a little bit of Yeah, you mustn't be discouraged by that. It's not the truth. You take time to get into it, and as you get better, you will start enjoying it. I can almost promise you. There's many students. We run a postgrad diploma, and in endodontics, and some people just come because they say they can't do endodontics. They don't like it, but they know the practice expects it from them. And some of them actually ended the course and going back to practice and only doing endodontics from there on forward. So it comes with time and skill, definitely.
First off, I'm noticing a pattern where you end up doing the things you don't like until you like them. But I think it's an interesting point you mentioned, in that kind of the more time you spend or something, and the more proficient you get at it, the more of an appreciation you get for it, because you start understanding why it's difficult. And then once you can start working past those challenges and you start figuring it out for yourself, there's a kind of fun in that. And it's something that Uwais and I talk about a lot, which is that kind of addiction you get with maybe struggling or something, but then getting this big rush when you eventually figure it out. But I'm really curious, for example, if you could go back to like the student version of yourself, what are some pieces of advice that you would have given yourself now that you have like more perspective, and now that you don't necessarily hate the things that you hated anymore?
Yeah, many things, perhaps not just on a professional point of view, but perhaps a little bit personal as well. Dentistry tends to pull you in and it becomes your life. And I think one must always find the balance in that. It's not everything in life. One must focus on the personal things as well. I would do anything to be 23 again. I mean, I'm almost double that now. Although I don't feel it, I can see it in years, and it's just a wonderful time of your life, being a young dental student and everything coming your way. It's probably the best and the most exciting time of your life. But going back to what advice I would give myself is, it's a little bit of a paradox. One wants to say, don't sweat the small stuff. Don't take everything in life so seriously. But it's a fine balance. You have to sweat the small stuff in dentistry. To be able to be a good dentist, you cannot be sloppy. Everything needs to be done perfectly. But having said that, you must not be so hard on yourself. So again, the fine balance. I see many students, that's brilliant students, but they take everything very, very seriously, which is good. When it comes to patients, yes, you need to do everything as good as you can. You must always give your best. But the best advice I can give my younger self is, there will be many cases and instances where your best will still fail. And then one mustn't be so hard on yourself, because dentistry is difficult. You will make mistakes. The most brilliant of your cases will fail, and the worst of your endos will succeed. And it's something that we can't always explain, but know that that's going to be the outcome. It's going to happen. And then don't be so hard on yourself. Don't be so critical on your work. That's the one side, but also keep on giving your best. Your work that you've done, and be super critical. And that's the only way you will definitely become better and better, and take chances. Yes, also within fine lines. You can't do stuff that you are not comfortable with, but get a good mentor. I would have went out and got myself a mentor sooner in my life. I've got a brilliant mentor in my life, Prof. Piet van der Vyver, but I met him when I was 34 years old. I wish I had someone like him, or met him 10 years before that, because I think I would have been even much further in my career. So my advice, even to the young dentist, would be, get a mentor. Phone them, share cases with them, do better work, and in that sense you will enhance yourself much quicker than just sitting in a practice and hoping that you will improve on your own. Because I can promise you, experience is a good thing, but sitting in a practice and trying to become better on your own is not the way to go. Don't be scared of asking. take the time in asking and getting advice. Then, yeah, perhaps on a more personal point, I would tell myself to be slower in taking important decisions. So when you're 23 years old, 24 years old, in your 20s somewhere, you passed ComServe, you think you're old. At that stage, I also thought that. I thought, now you need to get married, you need to get a job, you need to excel, you need to make money, you need to provide, you need to do all of this. And I think it's a good drive. But if I could go back, I would tell myself, slow down. You're not old. You're not past the time where you have to make all these important decisions. Yes, because you've got friends that perhaps started working on 21 and they're already in serious relationships and they've got flats and property and whatever. But it's not important. It's really not important. Slow down a little bit. Your whole life is in front of you. If you qualified as a dentist and you don't want to be a dentist, change your career. It's never too late. Don't have the courage to make changes in your life, especially at that age. You can still do anything that you want to do, but make the important decisions a little bit slower. Choose your life partner. Wow, that can make or break you. You need to spend time on this. Make sure that it's the right person. Make sure that your big decisions that has to last a lifetime. Make those decisions wisely. Don't be in a hurry. You're still very, very young. You've got your whole life to make those decisions. Don't spend money on a new BMW in ComServe. Slow down on that perhaps as well.
There goes my plan.
Yeah. Reward yourself, but do it wisely. And then, just live in the moment. I think it's very important. We tend to, your parents tell you that, and then someone in the 40s tell you that, but in your 20s, you're just chasing the next best thing. You always think, okay, what's next? Do I need to start specializing? Do I need to do this? Do I need to do that? You're always in a hurry to get onto the next part of your life. And I think that's the biggest mistake. Really, it's a cliche, but really live in the moment, appreciate everything, and live your life with appreciation. Give thanks to what you have. If you achieve something, give thanks. Give thanks to your family, the people that supported you in this journey, getting you up to this point in life. Appreciate them. Spend time with them. At the end of your lifetime, yes, you've got a good CV. It's good to have a good CV, but your 50 publications and your PhD and your master students and your big practice and that is not what's important. Your friends and your family and the relationships you have in life, that is what's truly important. So that's the advice I would give my younger self. Spend time on that. Spend time on relationships, spend time on hobbies. Yes, work hard, do your best, be passionate, set yourself goals, but all in good time. You're not old on 23, you're not old at 43. You have your whole life in front of you. That's more or less the biggest points that I would point out to myself. And if I could go back, that I would change slightly, just to appreciate life more and slow down.
So basically on that, I think this is something me and Johan talked about in a couple episodes back. We spoke about the whole thing about, we kind of related it, instead of sort of working and getting more qualifications, we kind of related it to studying, because there's lots of different ways that people study, or the amount that people study based on their goals. And we kind of spoke about like having relationships and, friendships and connecting with people around you. And a lot of the time people kind of neglect that as a student, because they just stay in their room studying all the time so they can get like a 90% or something like that. Whereas we would kind of like reach the conclusion that, for us at least, it's basically what you just said, like at the end of the day, like at the end of your life, like all those accomplishments are good, but you kind of leave behind all of the relationships and the people that you've touched their lives, or the people that you've affected. And that ultimately gives you a lot more fulfillment. And also something you said really like clicked with me, where you said like, the way to learn isn't to just sit at your own practice trying to figure it out yourself, because there again you kind of need people. Like, you need to make relationships and connect with others to not only further your life but like further your education as well. So I feel like that really touched base with me, and it kind of validated a lot of the things that we've been speaking about here as well.
Yeah, thank you, Uwais. Perhaps this is not the best advice, but I always say you shouldn't peak too early in life. I can honestly tell you I wasn't the best undergrad student. Like I said, I think my parents think I really never studied. And I did well enough to get through everything. But I think in my fourth year, I played in a musical. I was 6 weeks in the State Theatre, busy with a musical, performing every day and coming home at 11 at night. And I mean, that is something I take away. I can't remember even much about undergrad, but those 6 weeks I will remember for a lifetime. So don't peak too early in your life. I've got lots of respect for students that do well and put in the time and study hard and all of that. And you must celebrate that. Of course, this is a brilliant achievement. I'm not taking a second away from a student that does that. And it's brilliant standing on a stage at the end of the year, getting your degree cum laude, and that will always stay with you. But like you said, also don't neglect the things that's really important for you. If you play golf, if you have hobbies that's important, that you've always excelled in, don't neglect that. Keep on doing that. And you said also about family and friends, that's important. Another cliche is that your network is your net worth. And that remains true in life. The people that you surround yourself, you will become like them. Like-minded people help each other to succeed. And really, a year after you graduate, if you write the same exams and tests, you would probably fail. Nobody can remember all of those things forever. So you might do well in the moment, but having a good academic record does not make you a good dentist, fortunately or unfortunately. So get the degree. It's like your driver's license. I mean, if we all had to drive like you have to drive for your driver's license, there will be like accidents all over the show, perhaps. So you only become a good driver once you get the experience. So get your degree, go out there and make the best of your life, and take people with you. It's very, very important to build big relations, good relationships, strong relationships, and maintaining them throughout your career. I think that's probably the most valuable advice that I can probably give.
Uwais and I kind of talked about this the other day, where we mentioned that before you get into dentistry, the only thing that matters to you in life is just getting into dentistry. If only I could just get in, then life would be good. And then you get into dentistry, and then very quickly it shifts where it's like, if I could just finish this semester, if I could just finish this year, I could just get this done or get that done. And then, I mean, it's very prevalent in my year where at this point it's just like, I just want to get out of here, and like move on to the next thing. But what I realized is, especially after talking to a few young dentists that graduated like in the last 2 to 3 years, they're already saying they kind of miss the dental school days. Like they kind of miss a lot of the perhaps the security that came with being a dental student, where there's always a supervisor to help you. You can just ask freely, and there's not necessarily the financial pressure of because here, if a patient doesn't show up, it's like, okay, well, it's annoying and I'm not getting my quota for the day, but it's still like, in the grand scheme of things, it's okay. Whereas, for example, when patients cancel you in private, then it's like, okay, that's revenue that I'm not meeting. And so, I just found it interesting how there's this contrast between dental students just wanting to get out and like young dentists kind of wishing they could go back in. And I think especially this year, as much as I try to put as much of my energy into dentistry, I think there's also a part of me that's like, every now and then it's like, okay, you know what, I'm not going to use this weekend to study and maybe just see friends, because I don't know when I'm seeing them again. And I think that for me has kind of been the big realization, which is just that There's still a lot of time in life, but there's not necessarily a lot of time left as a student. And so I kind of want to see, maybe it's better to take that time and enjoy it than necessarily trying to eke out every last percentage on every single assignment and every single test, because 3 years from now, I'm not going to remember what I got for that OSCE or this exam, but I might remember the time that I spent with friends, or instead the regret that I had for not spending that time with friends. And I think especially here at the end, where it's like, I think we have like 5 weeks left or something, it's like, I'm trying to get as much of the university experience while I'm still here. And it's reassuring hearing from Prof kind of saying that as well, where, you have a lot of time to still be a dentist. You kind of have your whole life to still be a dentist, but you don't really have all that time to be a dental student. And as tough as it can be sometimes, with a lot of stress and a lot of work that's constantly on you, there's still, it's still an interesting time in your life. And I think it's worth like appreciating that. But something that I've kind of been thinking about a lot lately that I want to ask you, Prof, is how do you decide when, because you mentioned, for example, in private, when there's maybe something that you don't really want to do, you don't have to necessarily do it, you have a bit more freedom. How do you decide between maybe not doing something because you're just not the clinician for the job, and maybe deciding that, okay, I'm not good at it yet, but over time I can probably get better at it? How do you decide between this is something I'm willing to get better at, or this is something that I'm really not interested in, I'm not going to try? How do you kind of make decisions around that?
Oh, thank you, Johan. Just coming back to your previous comment, I can't agree with you more. I think my philosophy in life is everything is about balance. And if you can get balance right in your life, you will be very happy and you will be very successful. So like you said, spending time with people, that's important, that's good. And then again, putting your focus back on setting yourself goals. I think when we talk about goals, we very often neglect to say that there are personal goals as well as work-related goals. And I'm a list guy. So on my phone, I always have lists. And in 2023, I said nothing must go on that list if it's not personal. So exercise more, eat better, things like that. And I didn't really succeed as much as I wanted to, but still, goals are also related to your personal life and not just studying and passing tests and doing all these things. But yes, how do you decide what things to take on, what you dislike and what you like, and so on? Like you said, I think the responsible thing, the mature thing to do is to, for one, know your limitations. So ethics is also, ethics plays a role in, can you do this, or am I not qualified to do this? So I think the responsible thing to do is, if you know I cannot do this procedure properly, not to do it and to ask for help, but not to stop if you don't like something, not to stop at a point where you think you can't do something well, but to let that be a challenge, to either do a course in that specific topic and or attending a masterclass in that topic. And then you can decide, you know what, I've mastered this in terms of I can feel that I can do a proper job, I'm doing ethical work, I still dislike it, and then moving on to something else. I hope that makes sense, because if I take an example, I think you shouldn't go out and place an implant because you're not qualified to do so. It's unethical. You can't, as a just newly qualified dentist, start placing implants. You might not like surgery, which is great, but then attend a course, do some postgraduate course or something in implants, practice on like non-human tissue, and then you go back and place one. And if you still don't like it, move on. You don't have to do it for years to decide if you want to do it or not to do it. So there's two components to this. The one is an ethical component, which I think just don't do what you know you can't do well, because we still have an obligation to do our best towards patients, but then go out get that skill and try it. Give it a go. And if you still feel this is not for you, you don't do it. I think in terms of basic dentistry, extractions and restorations and stuff like that, you have to give it some time. I think the golden time span or time frame is 2 years. Try and do everything for 2 years. Even when you want to space, I mean, if you wanted to become an orofacial surgeon since you were 2 years old, awesome. Then do your primaries and go space and do it as soon as possible. But if you're unsure, you've got an interest in something, but not necessarily the only thing that you want to do, be in private practice or general practice then for 2 years, doing everything, do as much as you can. And I can promise you after the 2 years, I think that's the golden timeline, you will know exactly what you like and what you dislike. And remember, we grow. If you find something is challenging, you might grow into that and it will become more of your specialty field. But try everything for 2 years. Just don't do the things that you know you can't do well. There's nothing wrong with, for instance, referring molar endodontics after doing the emergency root canal until you come to the point of, yes, I like endo, but I'll stick to anteriors and premolars until I feel so comfortable with that I'll move on to the molars. And then you pursue that. Just don't do things that you know you can't do well.
And then on the note where you mentioned, for example, doing courses and, kind of giving things a go, and then maybe making more of a decision after that. Actually, I wanted to ask you, what would kind of be some general recommendations that you would make for the ex-dental student / young dentist, because we were having this discussion the other day amongst the final year students, and the question was like, okay, where's everyone applying for ComSurf next year? And everyone had like a very detailed list of places that they wanted to go to, and this is why, and that's, it's close to this place and whatever. And then the question became, okay, what are you going to do after ComSurf? And everyone was just like, And I realized that a lot of us, we don't necessarily really know what the benefit is of doing certain things, especially as a young dentist. For example, we didn't really know, for example, how would you decide if you want to go and do a PG dip? When is the best time to do a PG dip? How do you decide on maybe doing a master's in the form of an MSc? Or, if you think you want to go specialize, like, should you even bother going into private practice or just focus everything on academia? So just as kind of, since you have a lot more experience with young dentists in particular, what are some patterns that maybe you've noticed, or just some general advice that you find yourself giving to younger dentists?
Johan, that one's loaded. I think we can talk about that for another day. I'm going to try and keep it brief and give some hopefully valuable input on that. I think in ComSurf you should enjoy your year. Again, coming back to priorities and just work-life balance, I think it's the year where you kind of just slow down and relax a little bit. Enjoy the fact that you earn a very good income with having very low responsibilities. And you will perhaps never have that in your lifetime again. So again, slow down, appreciate the moment. Don't plan too much for the future in your ComSurf year. See a different part of the country. Pick up those hobbies that you missed out on. Start surfing or playing guitar or doing something. I think forget about dentistry for a while. It might seem like a bit of bad advice for young dentists, but I truly think that that's the year that you just focus on getting mentally sound again and becoming the person again that you were before you started writing exams and having all the stress. But there's a group of students that will know exactly they want to become an orthodontist. If you're one of those students or a periodontist, go for it as soon as possible. Finish your ComSurf, even start writing primaries in your ComSurf. The sooner you get into that program, the better. But there's very few students that know exactly what they want to become and know exactly they never want to see a child again, or they never want to do an endo. They're just going to become a max fac or whatever the case may be. So for those students, go ahead, go pursue that dream, do your primaries, do a master's, do whatever you can to come in, because the competition is extremely tough. Start as soon as you can. For those who have no idea what they want to do with their life, brilliant. Join the club. So we're the vast majority. The life will lead you into the correct path. I mean, you need to have the private practice experience for those 2 years before you can decide anything. Don't be in a rush to go out and do a postgrad diploma. So I'm actually at the point where I don't select students that only have a year or so private practice experience or just ComServe for the endo diploma. Because you know what? I'm actually taking away the experience from you, because you will come to the diploma, you will find everything very interesting and slightly overwhelming, and it will be nice. It's something that will be nice to know for you, but you will miss out on the experience. So when you're 2 years, 3 years in private practice and you then come for the diploma, you've already struggled with these things. You already have a million questions that's burning. And then you can ask those questions and we're there to help. So you'll get the full experience of this. You won't have the full experience in year one or in your ComServe. I think it's a waste taking 12 days of your first leave cycle in your lifetime, spending time doing a diploma, which you don't have the background for. So early dentist, early career dentist, do short courses. I mean, with Instagram and all these things these days, you will find those courses through various platforms. I'm not going to mention now. I might be a little bit biased, but you can watch out for the bigger names and follow people and look for courses that they present. And if it's a half-day course, a full-day course, go for it. You won't waste your time. You will find something that you can use in your practice or even ComServe, and you will find it valuable. When to start with a postgrad diploma, you will know. One day you're going to be in a practice and you say, you know what, I enjoy coming to practice because of kids. So let me do the pedo diploma. And see if that's perhaps a career that I can pursue, and you take it from there. But if you're unsure, just stick to general dentistry. The one thing that's brilliant in our profession is, as a general dentist, you can do absolutely everything, within limitations, of course. Like I said, you need to know your skill set and you need to know your limitations, but you can do orthodontics, you can do periodontics, you can do surgery, you can do endodontics. I mean, if you're skilled and you feel comfortable, the sky's the limit. You can do everything. But one day you will find yourself liking something more, and then you will naturally gravitate towards that, and things will come your way in order to let you progress in that direction. If you want to a life in academics, I would say start with a master's. Most masters are purely research. So if you want to stay a private practitioner and not so much used to doing a master's, that's just a dissertation or a research project, because it will not enhance your clinical skills. It will make you a better academic. But if academics is your future, which is a wonderful future, but it's for a very few, limited to few people. I mean, not all people want to go back to academics, and that's great. But if that's your future, then start with your MSc. Go for it. Otherwise, if you're still unsure, like I said, it took me 10 years in private practice to come back to academics. And in that 10 years, I did everything, and I loved it. So don't be in a hurry to pursue those dreams if you're not sure. But if you've always wanted to be an orthodontist or a max fac or a periodontist, you go for it. The moment you're out of ComServe, start getting those things in place immediately, because the competition is tough. Go for it as soon as you can.
Okay, yeah, that is very helpful. Yeah, I mean, most of us don't have any framework to go off of. So just that alone already helps a lot. Kind of what I'm getting is essentially, especially at the start, to more so get a bit of a taste for everything. And for example, by doing shorter courses, not necessarily committing to a full year or a full 2 years of doing this thing when you don't really know if it's what you're going to end up doing. And then sort of naturally as you go, kind of see where your interests lie, but then also not necessarily excluding things that you don't immediately, I guess, vibe with, because maybe over time preferences will change. But yeah, thanks for that. That's something that's been on my mind a lot ever since we had that discussion the other day. I think I was also just a bit like, oh, actually, I'm making these decisions about my future, but I'm not really sure what I'm kind of basing it on. So that helps quite a lot. I think a lot of kind of students in my sort of fourth year, fifth year students, I think that's actually a really nice framework to just go off of.
Yeah, especially the 2 year thing. It's like, I like that because it sort of gives me an idea also of like, okay, try it for this amount of time, and that's generally like how, like you'll be able to see in that period whether or not you actually don't like it or whether you can start to like it. Because if you just decide early on, just like in dental school, we always speak about like, you hate something at first. Like Johan is like very good at pros, but he kind of hated it at the start, and it kind of like gave me a bit of like energy to be like, okay, I also don't like pros now, but let me just stick with it. And the same applies, like you said, for afterwards, and that's also like very useful framework to go off of.
Uwais and Johan, you will probably agree with me that nothing teaches you to pray as hard as you have never prayed as being a dental student. And I think without being like spiritual on this platform, I think just one must remember at the end of the day, you can make as many plans as you want to, or have all these ideas for your life. But at the end of the day, if you just trust that your Creator will take you where He wants you to go, then your footsteps will follow that path. I mean, you need to be open for this, and you shouldn't be lazy. You should put in the effort. But at the end of the day, you can have all these thoughts and ideas and ideals for yourself, and then your path takes you somewhere completely different. I think you must be open for change. You must be open for growth. And most important, you must enjoy every second of that journey. Otherwise, life is not worth living.
Yeah, I feel like that's such a good point to kind of end things off on. Because a realization I had that I spoke about in one of the previous episodes is just this line that stuck out from a book that I read, which is just Journey Before Destination. And I don't know, it just, something about those 3 words have just really been, they kind of just imprinted themselves on my mind. And I think especially now, where I always had this idea that once I was a final year dental student, I would know exactly where I am in life and I'd have everything figured out. And I think I'm starting to realize just how much I don't know that I don't, just kind of the unknown unknowns, where there's still so much to figure out, and there's a lot of stuff that I'm not even aware yet that I don't know it yet. And so I've kind of come to appreciate that the destination part is actually like, there's a lot of question marks around it, even though for the past few years that was kind of my default, is just make it to the finish line, just get to whatever place. But I'm starting to realize that like I'm kind of running out of places to go to, and I need to start choosing kind of where this goes. And maybe the choice isn't even up to me the whole way through. But if you can kind of find a way to start enjoying the journey and kind of enjoying that challenge of struggling with something and eventually figuring it out and just kind of growing from that, then you're kind of setting yourself up for a bit of a better time, because the journey will always be there. It's kind of the destination that's maybe the questionable part. And so, yeah, we were kind of just having this debate of why put all this stress and energy into the destination that maybe you won't even go there. Maybe you'll change your mind at some point. Whereas if you spend more time thinking about where you are now and just kind of how to put one step in front of the other, then it kind of doesn't always matter where you end up, because you're kind of enjoying the 99% of it instead of just the 1% part of it.
Absolutely. Life is full of valleys and hills on your journey, and embrace the valleys. That's so important, because it's in the valleys that you learn and that you appreciate. And then equally important, when you're on the hill, you celebrate that hill. Stop in that moment and you celebrate it, even if it's a denture that fitted or a immediate that went in. I think you celebrate those hills, because if it wasn't for that valley, you wouldn't appreciate the hill. And if you can have that outlook in life, you'll appreciate both. And then even if it's going well or if it's going not so well, you will truly have a great time because you know what's coming. So, thanks, Johan. It was really a pleasure spending this morning with you and chatting about these things.
Yeah, thanks a lot, Prof. You've given me a lot to think about after this.
Yeah, same.
Anyways, I don't know if you have any final question, any final points you want to touch on. But I think for me, like this, just thanks a lot, Prof. I learned a lot from this past hour.
Yeah, no, same. A lot of value, I think, packed into this last hour. Two, I think I wanted to just say before, the two things that really stuck out for me was two comments you made, Prof, earlier, that I feel like it's kind of like one comment is kind of more directed, or it's sort of like applies a lot to Johan, and one comment kind of like applies a lot to me at the different points we're at. Because, I mean, Johan, you're finishing now, like, final year. I'm finishing third year. And the one comment that applies to me is when you said, if you write an exam now and you write the same exam maybe a year from now, you probably fail it. And that just I don't know, it just blew my mind, because I was like, that actually, it makes a lot of sense, because you kind of spend so long. I mean, it becomes a blur of tests at a certain point. I mean, I can't even remember how many tests or when I wrote tests last year in second year. And if I were to write those now, I'd probably fail them. And that's just how it is. And the second comment you made is about the driver's license. When you just get your driver's license, like when you just get your degree, it doesn't mean suddenly you are now a driver or like the best driver out there. You need to keep on practicing, keep on driving. And I think of like how I used to drive when I just got my drivers, and now it's been a few years and I'm like, oh, okay, now it feels natural. And that's just trusting the process, which is something, again, we speak a lot about. But those two things I feel like really impacted me. I even wrote them down, and I feel like I'll look back on those a lot to actually just put things into perspective.
Thank you, Uwais. You summarize it well. Trust the process and enjoy the ride. Absolutely. Don't be too hard on yourself. And as long as you're eager to learn and to develop, you will become the person that you were destined to be. It's as simple as that.